My name's Adam Sliger. I've been a music producer for over a decade, and today I'm answering even more of your questions from Twitter. So let's dive in. Ash wants to know why this generation of music is so loud. Are they getting old, or is everything getting louder? And the answer is yes, music is getting louder. So believe it or not, as time has gone on, there's been a thing called the loudness war. Basically, when CDs came around, vinyl records and tapes stopped being the main ways that people listen to music. And with that CD, that digital file, you were able to push things louder and louder without having weird side effects. Like if you have a vinyl record and you make your song too loud, it can actually make the grooves in the record too deep and the needle will skip. So now with CDs, you can make things a lot louder and it won't cause technical problems. So between CDs and then the radio, everybody wants their songs to be louder so that they stand out and they don't sound quiet next to other people's songs, right? And then with playlists now on things like Spotify and Apple Music, you want to make sure your music is loud and competitive. So it's not just you, and there are a lot of people who are against this loudness war sort of thing, but when you're working on commercial music that you're trying to sell, you want it to be as loud as everyone else's. So when your song comes on, people don't, skip it because it's quiet and boring sounding, or they don't have to go turn it up. So yes, things are getting louder. It's not just you. Now, the Lizard Man asks if someone can please tell them what reverb is. Yeah, so reverb is pretty simple to understand. Basically, reverb is just making a sound like it was recorded in a bigger space, typically. So, for example, if you are in a big cathedral and you were to sing and you hear the room has a nice sound to it where the things you're singing ring out just a little bit, it doesn't echo back. It just has a nice reverb to it. Now, reverb is something you can add later on. It's like a digital effect. So if I were to record myself speaking and then put reverb on it like this, then you can make it sound like it was recorded somewhere else with more reverb. Now, echo or delay is more like when you sing into a cave and then the sound comes back at you later. So that's kind of the difference between reverb and delay. Lazed Music asks what they should be looking for when they're trying to hire somebody to mix and master their music. Now, first, you want to find someone that's working on music that you think sounds good. So if you listen to their portfolio and it sounds professional, it sounds the way you want your music to sound, that's a big green flag. Now, another green flag is that they're working on music at least similar to yours. So, for example, I don't mix any dubstep or jazz, right? So if someone came to me and they wanted me to mix their dubstep record or jazz record, I would probably do a good job because I know what it should sound like more or less. And I know how to get a balanced mix. And I know generally what sounds good. But I wouldn't be somebody who's tapped into that genre as a fan, as someone who listens to it enough to really know what you're going for in that genre. So you want to find someone that at least works on music that's in the ballpark of what you're doing. And you also want to find someone that kind of works in a style that suits what you're doing. For example, there are some people who are great mixers, but they're backed up. So if you sent them a song to mix now in September, you're not going to get it back till the end of October, right? There's also people who are willing to mix your song today. So if you need it now, or you need someone that can mix a song for you every week or every month, somebody who's going to reply right away, if that's something that you value, talk to them. Say, what's your communication style? Do you have quick turnarounds, right? If you don't mind waiting a month, then maybe that first person is a good pick for you. But finding someone who offers the type of service that you're looking for is, I think, huge, and a lot of people overlook that. Now, Cass wants to know if Spotify's playlists have gotten worse because they've moved from using humans to AI or something like that, because the playlists are just not as good and there are just incorrect things, weird genre problems, wrong era, stuff like that going on. And the answer is yes. Actually, Spotify has laid off a good chunk of their curators in favor of automated playlists. And I don't use Spotify anymore. I actually switched to Tidal because they pay more to the actual artists in terms of royalties by a pretty good amount. But when I did have Spotify, I did kind of notice that my Discover Weekly wasn't as good as it used to be. And then even the playlists that I followed, it just started getting really repetitive. And eventually there was just stuff in the wrong genres. It also felt like anytime a big artist would release music, it would go into every single playlist that was even kind of related. Like genres that they're barely in would have like 5 songs from this A-list artist when it wasn't a great fit. So I can see where you would get that, and you're totally right. Now, Claire and Zero both want to know why the audio on TV and movies is so all over the place now, where the dialogue is super quiet, but then the action scenes are extremely loud. And I don't think they're the only ones that are experiencing this. I definitely get where they're coming from because I actually watched Dune this past week and I was turning it up and down constantly. And the reason for this is a couple different factors. So one, when you're mixing, you want to mix usually for the ideal highest quality setup. So when I mix music, I am focusing on how good it sounds on really nice speakers like the ones I have out in my studio, and I am focusing on how it sounds in really nice headphones because that's the person who really cares about sound quality the most. Now, I also go listen to the song in my car sometimes, or AirPods, or I play it out of my phone speaker just to get a feel for if it still sounds good in those settings, because I don't want it to sound bad to the people who are listening on their laptop speakers, for example. Now, in movies, the movie theater is the ideal listening spot. So when you're mixing a movie, you are going to be thinking about the movie theater. Well, movie theaters have really loud speakers, especially compared to your house, or even more so, a computer or a TV. So when you're mixing for the movie theater, you have a lot more dynamic range you can play with. And all that means is that you can have things be pretty quiet compared to the loudest thing, and people will still be able to hear the pretty quiet thing because the speakers are loud in general. Well, now when you move that to like a TV speaker where it's really small and it's not that loud to begin with, the overall volume is lower. So the thing you have mixed really quiet, which is going to be dialogue, is going to be way quieter than the loudest thing, which is explosions and car crashes, right? Now, the problem with that is over time, home sound systems have actually gotten worse from what I can tell. So I have a home theater set up with 5.1. So I have a center speaker, left and right, 2 surrounds, and a sub. So when I watch movies downstairs in my kind of theater area, it's very similar to the movie theater experience. But then let's say I finish the movie in my bedroom on the TV, it sounds so different. And honestly, I am turning it up and down a lot, and I am turning on subtitles. And that's because speakers on these flat screens have to fit in a flat screen. And that is just not going to sound good no matter what, because you're going from these 5 or 6 speakers to, one little strip of speakers that fit in your TV that's this big. So I understand if you're mixing movies, you don't want to mix for that tiny, bad sounding speaker that's built into the really thin TVs. But part of me does wish that you could select, let's say, an alternate mix, right? So you pull up Netflix and you tell it what kind of speaker you have, and it will play a more flattened out mix where the dialogue is raised up to match the level of the explosion. Because we're not going to get a big, impactful explosion sound out of this tiny little TV speaker, right? So it would be cool to maybe have different settings. I would be an advocate for that. But I understand why the dialogue is mixed quiet in these big blockbuster films. All right, so there we go. We solved Twitter's music production questions. If you like this video, make sure to hit the like button. And if you want more music production videos on your homepage, then go ahead and subscribe. And then you can watch this video next where I answer even more music production questions. Oh, and if you have your own question, leave them in the comments because I'd love to answer it. Anyway, I'll see you next week.